good to go?
I will 3, 2 and 1.
All right, fantastic to be here at Toowong Mitsubishi with Sales Manager Jason. They're doing a great job. Customers can know they're really coming to a reputable dealership. I'm also here with Chris from OFT to announce that the Prime OFT investigation will kick off with a compliance crackdown again this year. We've had a number of increase in reports from dodgy motor dealers who are selling flood-affected vehicles, tampering with odometers. We want to make sure that businesses and industry are doing the right thing so that Queenslanders aren't getting ripped off. So we'll be targeting motor dealerships, particularly looking at anyone operating without a licence, but they'll also be targeting other industries and retailers. We'll be cracking down on bait advertising. We've seen reports today, people advertising homes for rent that don't exist. We'll also be making sure that the funeral industry is complying with our new laws to make sure that there is transparent funeral pricing. We know that consumers also want to make sure that when they go and buy toys for their young ones, that they don't have button batteries and that those toys are compliant. So this crackdown is all about, as I said, making sure that businesses and industry are doing the right thing, helping with education so that small problems don't become big problems for Queensland consumers. As I said, we're getting an increase in complaints every year about these sorts of businesses, and it's all about making sure that Queenslanders are not getting ripped off and they're getting good value for money. I'll hand over to Chris and then to Jason, and then I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Tony. That's correct. We have seen a rise in the unlicensed motor dealing trade, and it's not places like where we are today, and thank you, Jason, for having us. We're just seeing the rise in used car market and the price increases, which is obviously bringing out the unscrupulous, unlicensed backyard motor dealers, and the Office of Fair Trading continues to see rising complaints about that. So this crackdown is standard for us. However, we're just putting a different focus on it this year where we're working with industry, we're using intel from industry associations to ensure. So we do encourage Queenslanders, if they are aware of unlicensed motor dealing or backyard motor dealing, to contact Fair Trading on our website and to lodge a complaint. I'll pass on to Jason just to discuss the industry.
Thank you. Dealers have to go through strict protocols to get licensing. It's very important that customers or consumers do buy a vehicle from a licensed motor dealer, just so that it protects them in case there is any warranty issues. It's the second biggest purchase someone's going to make behind a house, so it's vitally important that someone buys from a licensed motor dealer. Thank you.
Any questions?
What are the highest number of complaints that your office gets at the moment?
So last year, through the Prime compliance crackdown, they received over 2,500 complaints. And what happens is, obviously, Fair Trading will go out and work with the businesses. It can result in anything from a written warning, further investigation, fines, and ultimately a licence being cancelled. So it's so important that Queenslanders understand that they need to make a complaint if something is not right, so that OFT can investigate and we can crack down on these dodgy dealers. We want to make sure Queenslanders aren't getting ripped off.
Is there a crossover with the QBCC, like if there are building complaints, that sort of thing? Do you have power within your office?
I might ask Chris what happens with that.
It's a really good question, actually, because with the Australian consumer law, there are issues in relation to failed supply. However, if a business that's in the building game holds a licence and it's a licensing issue, the QBCC deals with that. However, if it's a consumer law failed supply issue or an unconscionable conduct issue, the Office of Fair Trading will take that complaint.
Are you seeing those types of complaints?
Certainly. I think, off the top of my head, I think we've done over 100 prosecutions in the last 12 months with failed supply in the building industry.
Obviously, we've seen Oracle collapse.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Obviously, the Oracle situation that's unfolding at the minute, is that something the Office of Fair Trading is looking at in terms of consumers' rights?
Not in relation to that. Obviously, Oracle being a building company with a licence, the QBCC is looking at that. It's not in relation to a failed supply. The Queensland Home Warranty Scheme runs out of the QBCC, not Fair Trading.
Just with the matters that you're looking into, it's obviously already a responsibility of the OFT. So when you say crackdown, what are we actually seeing happening here?
It's about intel sharing. So we work with other government departments, such as the Queensland Transport TMR, to obtain intel to see things like vehicle transfers. You're supposed to nominate the odometer when you sell a car. If someone's replacing a cluster or changing the odometer on there, they can be picked up through those transfer papers. So we work with other departments to get that information to be able to target specifically those selling multiples, because if you're in the business of buying and selling motor cars, you need a licence like Jason and his colleagues. However, if an individual's doing it, doesn't have a licence, that's unlicensed motor dealing. And as the Attorney-General said, there are penalties that can go as far as prison sentences. So we've put people away multiple times for large range of odometer tampering and multiple unlicensed motor dealing charges. So it's a serious offence.
Spot checks? Do you want to talk about
Definitely, yes. So we will do spot checks across Queensland. We've got officers right across the eastern seaboard, and we will target individual unlicensed motor dealing targets as well as motor dealers just to educate. So any new licensee who gets a new licence, we will come through and educate them to help them through, nip things and problems in the bud, and educate as well as do compliance.
Is there a surge in workforce officers that have been placed in this area, or how are you doing this?
Yeah, we shift resources all the time in relation to that. So we've got a central intelligence area that's based in Brisbane and inspectors right across Queensland. So.
Attorney General, if people want to make complaints, what's the best way? Is it online? I mean, this is a bugbear that people deal with every day.
It's really easy to make a complaint online. Head to the Office for Fair Trading website. They can also pick up the phone and talk to our compliance team with any concerns that they have.
Just on another topic,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. There are calls this morning for laws to be changed to be similar to New South Wales laws in recognising unborn children killed in traffic accidents. Is that something that you would consider bringing in after 7 years of signatures being put on petitions?
Yeah, look, I've met with Sarah and Peter Milosevic, and we've actually been consulting on a range of changes to recognise unborn children in these circumstances. My heart goes out to them. They have been campaigning for many years for law changes. It is a complex area of law. Most jurisdictions have not recognised unborn children in this way. New South Wales passed laws late last year, I think 12 years after the first private members bill was introduced. So we are consulting with legal stakeholders, with families like the Milosevics, and we're working through the results of that consultation right now.
Is the complexity existing in that it has ramifications in other areas of law?
Absolutely, and it may have unintended consequences as well. So we want to make sure we get this right. I certainly understand how frustrating it must be for them for it to take this long, but certainly I met with them fairly early on in my term as Attorney-General, and since that time we have been working through a range of proposals and testing them with families and with legal stakeholders. The government is yet to determine a position, but I hope that in the coming months the government will determine a position on any changes in this area.
Can you explain some of those potential ramifications? Is it a matter of pro-life laws?
Yeah, so Sarah herself has said to me, and is quoted in the media today, that she does not want any of these changes to impact on a woman's right to choose. We decriminalised abortion in this state, something I'm and the government is very proud of. So we do want to make sure that there are no unintended consequences. We have, for example, been consulting on recognising the unborn child's name on an indictment, which for a grieving family gives them some recognition at law of their loss. That's one of the changes that we are consulting on.
If the child can be given a death certificate, it's a wonder that it's not considered in sentencing.
Well, that's right, and that's why we're consulting on these issues. As I said, one of the changes we're consulting on is recognising the child on an indictment and aggravated factor in sentencing.
And so you would be worried that, it could delve into an abortionist or something, or a clinic could face prosecution if it was done the wrong way?
Look, I think that we just want to make sure there are no unintended consequences of any law change. And as the Attorney-General, I'm responsible for making sure that we consult with a wide range of stakeholders on this issue. As I said, I certainly understand the family's frustration that this has taken many years, but we are well into our way consulting on these issues, and government will take a position soon.
Attorney General, just on another topic if we can. Understand that Monday's usual cabinet meeting wasn't held because the Premier was on leave to Hamilton Island. Is that an unusual occurrence?
Usually when the Premier is on leave, Cabinet doesn't take place, but a number of other Cabinet subcommittees do happen. So I know that a number of Cabinet subcommittees took place on Monday, and that's pretty usual.
So how come the Deputy Premier doesn't take Cabinet if the Premier is not available?
That's just been the practice. When the Premier is on leave, Cabinet usually doesn't meet, but other Cabinet subcommittees do meet.
Do you think it's appropriate, given Cabinet is really the mechanism of government, we're in the middle of a housing crisis, a health crisis, there's a lot of issues, that the Premier sees fit to take leave to go to a race week on Hamilton Island in the middle of 2 parliamentary sitting weeks?
Look, the Premier, like all of us, works incredibly hard and has taken a small break. I understand there was no taxpayer dollars spent. She's entitled to a small break. We work hard every day for Queenslanders, and as I said, a number of Cabinet subcommittees. I'm a member of the Youth Justice Cabinet subcommittee. We met on Monday. The business of government goes on.
Were you prepared for a usual cabinet meeting? And I guess in line with that, when did you find out cabinet was not sitting?
I'd have to check, but I think my office was given some notice that cabinet wasn't happening on that Monday.
A couple of days' notice?
Oh, longer than that, but I'd have to check.
Is this the first time the Premier's been on leave and it's impacted cabinet meetings?
No, I think often during school holidays when a lot of ministers take time to meet with their families, often cabinet doesn't go ahead. But as I said, for the ministers that are there, we're working. You know, I signed plenty of briefs on Monday, and as I said, we had some pretty important cabinet subcommittee meetings.
Just on New Auckland, it could be inferred that by announcing the expansion of the New Auckland mine at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, that the government doesn't really stand by its decision. Is that the case?
No, look, I understand. The Minister put out a press release yesterday. The mining leases have been approved. It's been our government's position the whole way through this very lengthy process that we would wait until the outcome of the court proceedings before the Land Court. The Minister has now made that decision. I understand other associated permits are still outstanding, including an associated water licence. So there's still a number of steps to go through this process, and the Minister obviously made that decision yesterday.
How confident are you that the miner will get the water licence?
I have absolutely no idea. I've never been the Minister for Water. I don't know what's involved, but I am very confident in the Minister and the Department to make the appropriate decision.
Does Queensland need more thermal coal given international and international targets for climate change?
Well, look, as I said, this mine has had a very long history, and we've always had the position that the approvals would not be granted until the quite lengthy legal proceedings had finished in the Land Court. That is now finished. It's now a matter for the Minister and the Department to make those approvals.
Are there any further avenues of appeal for agreement from farmers?
I understand that the avenues of appeal have been exhausted in the Land Court, but I can check further for you.
Do you believe the mine stacks up environmentally?
Well, that's a matter for the Department of the Environment and the Minister.
We saw a couple of teenagers in Pacific Fair yesterday arrested over holding gel blasters. There was a bit of a gun scare there. Queensland's the only state in the country that doesn't make it illegal. Do you think it's time for laws to be tightened up?
We have very strong laws in relation to gel blasters. I understand you can't carry them without them being covered. You have to store them in, appropriately locked boxes. We've made some changes recently to strengthen those provisions. I understand the police have now, cautioned those young people, but that is why we have these very strong laws, because they look like real guns. So we have very strong measures in place to make sure that people aren't carrying gel blasters in public, and that's why the police acted appropriately.
Attorney General, mindful we've covered a lot of topics, but just on the Star inquiry that's
Yes.
been happening this week, there's been a lot of reference to a report which was done by the Office of Liquor and Gaming, an
Yep.
interim report that the review is also looking at. Is that report going to be released?
Is this the report into the suitability of Chow Tai Fook? So, look, I understand back in 2014, investigations commenced into the suitability of Chow Tai Fook. I understand investigators travelled to Hong Kong and Macau. They worked with the police over there. They worked with the New South Wales Police and the Queensland Police and determined that they were suitable at that time to hold a licence. Now, these fresh allegations that came to light on 7:30 are now being investigated by OLGR. There are some confidentiality provisions in the Casino Control Act. However, the outcome of any investigation will be communicated to the public. And the terms of reference for the casino external review that's underway right now are broad enough to look at Star Group's close associates, of which Chow Tai Fook is one. So they'll also be looking at this issue. And if anyone has any further information, I'd really encourage them to make a submission to the independent external review.
Is it appropriate for the Office of Liquor and Gaming to be conducting this fresh investigation, given they were showing the initial probity and gave it the all clear?
Well, that is their job as the regulator. Every few months they are constantly assessing suitability. Suitability isn't a one-point-in-time check because things change. So they have to constantly examine the suitability of people to hold a casino licence, and that's their job. So they're obviously working on the fresh allegations that came to light, and as I said, the independent external review, which is underway, will also look at these issues. So I think Queenslanders can have confidence that this will be examined in depth. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go look at some cars.